Good evening, friends, and thank you for tuning in to Reading on the Rock here at Covenant United Methodist Church in Rochester, New York. I'm Reverend Ann Kemper. Tonight, John Cmelko is reading a book about Clarence Thomas in recognition of Black History Month.
Good afternoon. My name is John Cmelko, and I'm here to read Clarence Thomas, The Things He Learned, by L.D. Hicks, published by Post Hill Press. When Clarence Thomas was a little boy, he went to live with his grandparents, Anderson and Tina. Anderson taught Clarence and his brother that working hard was good. Life was not easy for African American children when Clarence was growing up. In fact, they made laws that kept the races separate. These laws were terribly mean, weren't they? African Americans could not use the same bathrooms, go to the same schools, or even eat in the same places as white Americans. Clarence Thomas's grandfather wanted Clarence and his brother to be successful no matter what. He taught them that to be successful, they had to work harder than anybody else, no matter what color their skin was. He made sure Clarence and his brother always went to school. Anderson taught Clarence and his brother how to build a house, drive an oil truck, work on a farm, and give to those who needed help. Clarence went to private Catholic school, and his teachers were nuns and priests. While he was in school, he learned math, manners, memorization, and that it was okay to be different and think for yourself. Clarence had perfect attendance at school and was never late to class. The nuns, like Clarence's grandpa, believed that failure was not an option. Clarence loved to read. In fact, his friends were sometimes disappointed that he would rather read or study than play outside. Even though Clarence loved to study, he also loved to play basketball. He could dribble, he could spin, he could do tricks. He had fun showing off. In 1964, Clarence Thomas went to high school and learned about Martin Luther King Jr. and what it's like to be mistreated because of the color of your skin. That's called racism. He also learned the difference between right and wrong, and that all kids could go to school together. Clarence's high school was an all-boys boarding school, where black students and white students lived and studied together. Sometimes the white kids made ugly jokes and were mean. Clarence Thomas learned about bullies and how to stick up for himself by working hard no matter what. Sports were important to Clarence. Not only was he smart, he was a good athlete. After graduating from high school, Clarence Thomas went to college. Clarence learned how to stand up for his beliefs and teach others to understand his point of view. When he was in college, Clarence Thomas studied very hard, just like when he was younger. He learned a lot about words and writing. He also learned how to run a newspaper. After many years in school, Clarence Thomas learned enough to be a lawyer. He used everything he learned to help people, just like his grandfather taught him. In 1974, Clarence Thomas worked for the state of Missouri. He worked hard and learned about the Republican Party, which is a group of people in government who share his way of thinking. He learned that he could still impress his friends at basketball, and that all people don't have to think the same. He knew his grandfather was right to teach him the value of hard work. After a while, Clarence Thomas went to work for an office of the government that makes sure that all people are given a chance to find good jobs, no matter what color their skin might be. This was called the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and Clarence was in charge. While he was there, he learned that all people should be treated the same in the workplace. He believed that people should be able to take care of themselves and each other, and that the government should help when life was hard. In the United States, there is one job that is guaranteed for life: a Supreme Court justice. Only 9 people in the United States have this job at one time, and the President of the United States has to nominate you for it. On July 1st, 1991, President George H.W. Bush nominated Clarence Thomas for the Supreme Court. Out of thousands of people, the President chose Clarence Thomas. The Supreme Court is in charge of all the courts in the United States, and 9 justices are in charge of the court. The judges sit at the head of the courtroom on benches and wear black robes. The judges are like basketball referees and make sure that everyone plays by the rules. Lawyers argue people's disagreements in front of the judges, and a group of people called a jury decide which side wins. The Supreme Court makes decisions for the whole country. On October 23, 1991, Clarence Thomas was sworn in as the 106th Justice of the Supreme Court, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As a Supreme Court justice, Clarence Thomas learned to understand laws passed by Congress, to listen to lawyers debate both sides of the law, and to decide which side wins. The Supreme Court was created 232 years ago. Since then, only 115 people have been chosen to be justices on the Supreme Court. That is how special a job Clarence Thomas has. Since the book was written in 2021, the court has been around for 236 years. And Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, became the 116th justice and the first African-American woman to serve on the court. Clarence Thomas is still a Supreme Court justice today. He used everything he learned in life to be successful. Learning is important. What have you learned today?
Thank you, John, for reading this book about the things that Clarence Thomas has learned in life. Would you please pray with me? Holy God, thank you for books that teach us about life lessons that make other things possible. Amen. So join us again next week for more children's stories focusing on Black History Month. Good night.
Reading on the Rock is presented by Covenant United Methodist Church in Rochester, New York. If you like Reading on the Rock, please give a donation on our website, covenantroc.org.